Let's be honest. The scroll is the new leash. Every time your thumb moves, you think you're in control. You're not. You're being trained, rewired by invisible hands that feed your dopamine in microdoses, teaching your brain to chase crumbs instead of meaning. The irony? You call it killing time, but it's time killing you. Most people don't realize it yet, but their screen is not a window. It's a mirror. Every clip, every quote, every trend you consume becomes a signal to your subconscious, telling it what to value, what to fear, what to desire. You are not watching life. You are programming your mind. And your mind, obedient as it is, builds what you feed it. Your feed isn't random. It's an algorithmic reflection of your attention. It doesn't just show you what you like. It shapes what you become. That's why your world starts looking more and more like your explore page. You scroll anxiety, you live anxiety. You scroll anger, you attract it. You scroll fake perfection, you start hating your own reflection. So if your life feels repetitive, empty, stuck, it's because your algorithm learned your patterns better than you did. You keep feeding it the same energy, and it keeps feeding it back, on loop, until you forget who trained who. Here's the part no one says out loud. You don't escape a system by deleting apps. You escape it by reclaiming your focus, because your focus is your currency. It builds the architecture of your reality. What you give attention to becomes the material your future is built from. Every time you stop and watch someone else's story, your brain confuses it for your own. It fires the same neural pathways as if you lived it. That's why content feels like connection. But it's a simulation, a ghost signal, and too much of it disconnects you from the real pulse of your own life. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt present? Not entertained, not distracted, present. That silence that used to scare you, that's where your real story starts. But you avoid it. You fill it with noise, opinions, trends, data, more stories. Because facing silence means facing truth. And truth doesn't flatter your ego, it frees it. Still here? Good. That means something in you is tired of being sedated. Maybe you're not just scrolling anymore. Maybe you're searching. And here's the twist. Your mind doesn't know the difference between watching and creating. Every image it sees becomes a blueprint. So while you think you're observing someone else's life, you're actually designing the architecture of your own, based on their script, not yours. That's why the world feels out of your hands. Because it is. You gave your reality away in exchange for 5 seconds of stimulation that vanishes faster than it hits. But if you're still here, maybe that's your turning point. Maybe you're done being a consumer of illusions and ready to become the author of what's real. Because there's a moment, right before awareness hits, when everything feels uncomfortable, boring, or wrong. That's not failure. That's withdrawal. Your brain detoxing from the constant feed of validation and distraction. And when you stay through that discomfort, something extraordinary happens. Your mind begins to remember itself. The scroll slows down, the noise fades, and suddenly, the things that used to excite you don't. Because they never really fed you, they fed the system. This is where awareness begins. Not in a meditation app, not in a quote post. Right here, in the moment you notice that you're watching life instead of living it. Here's the truth. Your consciousness doesn't expand through inspiration. It expands through interruption. When you interrupt the cycle, even once, you create space for a different choice. And that choice, small as it seems, is the beginning of freedom. So pause, right now, breathe. Feel that urge to scroll again? That's your leash tugging. Don't move, stay with it. That's you taking back the controls. If you're still listening, it's not by accident. It's because part of you knows the story you live next will depend on what you choose to focus on now. Stay with me, because what comes next shows you exactly how to reclaim it. The world has convinced you that freedom is having endless options, but real freedom is having the power to say no. Every swipe is a tiny contract. You exchange a fraction of your focus for the illusion of entertainment. But attention isn't renewable. It's the most expensive energy you own. And the game is designed so you forget that. The more you scroll, the more you lose the ability to decide what deserves your energy. Your brain starts outsourcing that job to the algorithm. And soon, your impulses are no longer yours. You're not choosing anymore. You're reacting. That's how minds are domesticated, not by force, but by overstimulation. When you start paying attention to what you pay attention to, everything changes. You start noticing how many of your wants were planted, how many dreams came from other people's highlight reels. You start realizing you've been living in a rented identity, built from pixels, not purpose. The moment you question it, you start to wake up. And the moment you choose differently, the system loses control. Think about it. If they can make you crave the next scroll, they can make you crave the next version of yourself. The one that still needs to buy, prove, post. The one that never feels enough. The one that keeps scrolling, searching for relief from a hunger that the feed itself created. But there's another version of you waiting to take over. The one who knows the value of silence, of pause, of choosing what not to consume. That version isn't addicted to stimulation. It's addicted to clarity, the same mechanism that trains you to crave. Distraction can be trained to crave focus. Every time you stop before scrolling, your brain rewires itself. Every time you consciously decide what to watch, read, or engage with, you reshape your inner world. That's neuroplasticity, the ability to mold your own consciousness through consistent choice. Imagine what happens when you use it with intention. When your feed becomes a learning tool, not a dopamine trap. When your content diet feeds your spirit instead of draining it. That's not self-help. That's self-mastery. We keep chasing external control, power over systems, over people, over money. But the only control that actually exists is the one inside. Control over what enters your mind, what you repeat, what you amplify. You become the architect of your own frequency. And the world, your world, starts to mirror that frequency back. It's not magic, it's math. Focus equals form. Attention equals architecture. What you repeat becomes real. So if your daily ritual is staring at strangers succeeding, guess what? Your subconscious learns to admire instead of act. But when your ritual becomes creation, curiosity, stillness, your brain learns to build instead of crave. That's when your life stops being a feed and starts being a field. A living system that responds to your intention, not your impulses. It's not about rejecting technology. It's about reclaiming authorship. Because when you stop reacting and start choosing, you become the one writing the code, not running it. Here's the truth they'll never post. The real flex is focus. In a world fighting for your attention, the rarest luxury is owning your mind. We live inside an attention economy where distraction is the product and you're the currency. Every second you spend lost in a scroll is someone else getting paid in data, dopamine, or dollars. And while you're there, chasing stimulation, someone else is quietly building the world you'll live in tomorrow. Let's call it what it is: engineered hypnosis. The feeds, the algorithms, the endless recommended for you, all designed to keep you suspended in micro loops of temporary pleasure. It feels like freedom, but it's actually a cage made of constant choices that don't matter. And the scariest part, the bars are invisible. Every app wants to be your reality manager. Every ping wants to interrupt the birth of an idea, because if you ever sit still long enough, you might remember how powerful you actually are. That pause, that moment when you choose not to react, is your liberation key. It's in the pause that your brain recalibrates. That's where awareness slips in, and awareness is lethal to manipulation. Most people live permanently preloaded. They wake up already occupied by notifications, timelines, reminders, fears that aren't even theirs. They've been programmed to start each day in response mode. But you, if you're listening, you can reprogram that. Every single day, your choices either strengthen your consciousness or dilute it. That's it. Two paths, no middle ground. When you scroll mindlessly, you're outsourcing your evolution. When you choose mindfully, you're designing it. Start small. Before you open an app, ask, what am I looking for? If you don't have an answer, don't open it. Because when you enter without intention, you exit without memory. And that's how entire lives disappear in microseconds. You want dopamine? Fine, hack it. Dopamine is not your enemy. Unconscious repetition is. Learn to get that same high from progress, from creating something, finishing a task, learning a new skill, working out, even cleaning your space. Each of those moments floods your brain with the same reward chemistry. But now, you're the one in control of the trigger. This is what the awakened generation will understand. Attention is the new form of prayer. Whatever you worship with your focus becomes your God. If you worship distraction, you'll live fragmented. If you worship discipline, you'll live free. Conscious living isn't rigid, it's radiant. It's not about no fun or no social media. It's about power. Because the minute you choose what enters your field, you're no longer a participant in collective hypnosis. You're the one setting the tone of your reality. And once you taste that level of clarity, you can't unsee it. You'll start noticing how everything tries to steal your frequency. Marketing, news, gossip, fear, they all depend on your reaction. No reaction, no fuel. Silence becomes your rebellion. Focus becomes your revolution. Creation becomes your revenge. Because when you stop feeding the noise starves. Every day, You're given 100 portals disguised as distractions. Each one is a choice, escape or evolve. You can open a portal that leads to comparison, or one that leads to competence. A portal that drains, or one that creates. And that's where destiny hides. Not in fate, not in astrology, not in algorithms, in choice. Tiny, repeated, unglamorous choices that sculpt entire realities. People underestimate how spiritual it is to close an app and open a book. How sacred it is to ignore noise and finish something you started. How divine it is to build something that no one liked, but you did it anyway. That's sovereignty, not the fake version that posts about self-love while scrolling for validation, but the quiet kind that doesn't need witnesses. And let's get brutally honest for a second. If you want to change your life, stop chasing feelings and start chasing focus. Because emotion without direction is chaos, and attention without purpose is addiction. When you learn to master both, you become unstoppable. Your inner world becomes too coherent for manipulation. You stop living as a reaction and start existing as a cause. That's the highest level of creation. When your thoughts, your words, and your actions align, that's when manifestation stops being a wish and becomes physics. You've heard it 1,000 times. You create your reality. But here's what they don't tell you. You also maintain it. Every thought you repeat is maintenance. Every habit you keep is reinforcement. Every input you allow is programming. You can't consume chaos and expect peace. You can't absorb envy and expect gratitude. You can't live in the shadow of screens and expect to feel alive. So what if today you stopped chasing what's trending and started listening to what's true? What if you realized that the next viral moment won't change your life, but the next conscious decision will? The future belongs to the focused, to those who understand that the real algorithm is consciousness itself. A living intelligence that amplifies what you feed it. Feed it presence, and you get miracles. Feed it noise, and you get numb. So choose carefully, because every tap, every word, every thought, every breath, it's all code. And you're the programmer. You're not here to scroll through other people's realities. You're here to build your own, brick by brick, thought by thought, until one day, you wake up and realize your life is no longer a reflection of distraction, but a masterpiece of intention. If this spoke to you, don't just nod and move on. Pause, breathe, and share it with someone who's still asleep in the feed. Because maybe that single act becomes the one conscious choice that changes their entire reality. Subscribe, stay close, and keep walking with us. This is Human Wave, where awakened minds rise into a life of wholeness and fulfillment.